You know, life has a quiet way of revealing truths. If we're willing to pay attention, people always show you who they are, not in their words, but in their actions, especially when they think no one's watching. The truth is, bad men don't come wearing black hats or flashing neon signs. No, they're often the ones who smile warmly, who hold the door, who say all the right things. They make you feel safe until one day they don't. And by then, sometimes the damage is already done. But not this time. Today, we're going to uncover 7 signs that tell you exactly who they are, long before they get close enough to hurt you. These are the little things, the subtle shifts, the moments that make you pause and think something's not right. And if you trust that feeling, you'll be stronger, wiser, and free. Because the Stoics said it best, we cannot control the actions of others, but we can choose who we allow into our lives. This isn't about fear, it's about clarity, about guarding your peace like the treasure it is. So stay with me. Let's walk this road together. I'll show you the signs, and you'll never have to second-guess yourself again. Sign 1. They manipulate with kindness. One of the most dangerous things about a bad man is how kind he can seem at first. You know the type, the one who shows up, right on time, offers you his jacket when it's cold, remembers your favorite book, and surprises you with thoughtful little gestures. It's disarming. It feels good, doesn't it? We all want to believe the best in people, especially when they go out of their way to make us feel seen. But there's a difference between genuine kindness and calculated charm. And here's the hard truth. Not all kindness comes from a good place. When kindness is used as a tool, it's not really about you, it's about control. It's about creating a debt, even if it's unspoken. And once they think you're hooked, once they believe you're invested, they tighten their grip, they give less, they demand more, and they expect you to keep saying thank you the whole way down. That's not generosity. That's a transaction you never agreed to. I remember an old neighbor of mine, let's call him Richard. We'd only been in the house a month when he came by with a plate of homemade cookies. Seemed harmless enough. Over the next few weeks, he offered to mow our lawn, lend us tools, even fix the loose gate without being asked. My wife thought he was the kindest person we'd met since moving in. I wanted to believe that too. But over time, things started to shift. If I didn't accept his help, he grew distant, cold. If I made other plans when he invited us over, suddenly there were complaints about our kids being too loud or subtle digs about how we weren't being neighborly. It dawned on me, his kindness wasn't free, it came with strings, thin ones, almost invisible. But they're all the same. This is what the Stoics teach us about flattery and favors. Marcus Aurelius warned against those who use charm as a mask, saying, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If a person's actions are rooted in manipulation, eventually it shows, but only if we're paying attention. Stoicism doesn't ask us to be cynical. It asks us to be clear-eyed, to see people as they are, not as we wish them to be, and that requires us to watch what they do when we say no. What happens when you set a boundary? A good man respects it, a bad man punishes you for it. Sometimes subtly, sometimes not. The solution? Don't be dazzled by acts of kindness alone. Anyone can open a door, anyone can remember your favorite song. But true character shows in how someone treats you when they have nothing to gain. As Epictetus said, seek not the good in external things, seek it in yourselves, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. You don't need to explain your boundaries or defend your instincts. You just need to honor them. And here's something I've learned, painfully and slowly. Kindness should feel light, not heavy. It should bring freedom, not obligation. The right people give without keeping score. The wrong ones, they keep a ledger, and they expect you to pay up. Sign 2. They never take responsibility. There's a quiet danger in a person who refuses to take responsibility for their actions. At first glance, it may seem like a harmless habit, blaming traffic for being late, blaming the weather for a bad mood, blaming others for their own mistakes. But listen carefully, and you'll notice a pattern. Over time, they are never at fault, never the cause. Life simply happens to them, and they are just the unlucky passenger, never the driver. This is the hallmark of a bad man. Blame without reflection, his failed career. The company was corrupt, his broken relationships. They never understood me. His anger. She pushed me too far. If you listen long enough, you'll hear the same song, and it always ends with someone else carrying the burden of his choices. Psychologically, this kind of man is often deeply insecure. Admitting fault feels like weakness to him, so he builds a wall of excuses to protect his fragile sense of self. But Stoic philosophy teaches us something different. As Seneca said, the first sign of wisdom is to admit your own faults. There is no strength without accountability, and there is no wisdom without reflection. A man who can't say, "I was wrong," is a man trapped in a cycle of his own making, and the people around him, they often get trapped too. They become the ones smoothing things over, fixing the messes, justifying his behavior to others. They carry his guilt for him, while he walks on without ever feeling its weight. The longer you stay in his orbit, the more you'll find yourself pulled into his blame game, losing pieces of yourself in the process. The Stoics remind us to focus on what is within our control, and one of those things is deciding who we allow into our lives. A person who blames everyone else is not someone who will grow alongside you. He is not someone who will support you when life becomes difficult. When real responsibility is needed, in love, in family, in friendship, he will not be there, because he never learned how to be responsible for himself. If you find yourself in the company of someone who avoids accountability at all costs, take a step back. Watch how they handle their mistakes, even the small ones. Do they apologize? Do they reflect? Or do they point fingers and deflect blame? The answer will tell you everything you need to know. A good man doesn't fear responsibility. He understands that to be human is to be flawed, and to grow is to admit it. If a man can look at himself clearly and own his faults, he is someone who can be trusted, someone who can weather life's storms with you. But if he cannot, your peace depends on stepping away. Responsibility is the foundation of character. Without it, there's nothing solid to stand on. Sign 3. They wear a mask of charm. Here's an interesting fact. Studies show that the average person forms an impression of someone within 7 seconds of meeting them. 7 seconds, that's all it takes for us to decide if someone is trustworthy, kind, or respectable. And bad men know this. They count on it. Charm is their sharpest tool, finely tuned and ready to work the moment you shake their hand. A bad man often presents himself as the most agreeable person in the room. His laugh is warm, his eye contact steady, and his compliments flow easily. On the surface, he seems to have an almost magnetic energy, drawing people in. He knows exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say it, but if you stay around long enough, if you pay attention when he thinks no one is, you start to notice the cracks in the mask. His charm isn't rooted in sincerity, it's a strategy, a costume he wears because he knows how deeply we, as human beings, long for connection and kindness. There is one simple way to test the true nature of a man like this. Watch how he treats those he believes are of no use to him. The cashier at the grocery store, the hotel maid, the driver in front of him who's moving too slowly. Does he offer them the same grace he gave you when you first met? Or is his tone sharp, dismissive, or worse, contemptuous? A bad man's charm is often selective. It's reserved for those who can benefit him. It is a means to an end, not an expression of who he really is. This is why the Stoics were so wary of Appearances, Epictetus warned, it is not what a man says, but what he does that reveals his character. Stoicism teaches us not to be fooled by what glitters on the surface. True virtue needs no applause, no audience. It simply is. The man who is kind because he is kind will treat the janitor with the same respect he gives the CEO. He will act justly, even when there is no reward. But the bad man, his actions change with the stakes. He thrives on recognition, on being admired, and when no one is watching, when he has nothing to gain, the charm fades. What remains is often something cold, something self-serving. We must learn to see past the mask. It isn't about becoming cynical or distrusting everyone you meet. It's about developing clarity, the kind the Stoics prized. Instead of being impressed by charm, look for consistency. Does this person's behavior match his words? Does he honor his commitments? Is he respectful when the spotlight is off? These are the markers of a person with real integrity. The truth is, anyone can be charming for 7 seconds. Some can manage it for 7 weeks, but no one can fake true character forever. If you listen closely, if you watch carefully, you'll see what's behind the mask, and when you do, believe it. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. A man's character always reveals itself in time. Sign 4, they lack empathy. There's an emptiness in a person who cannot feel for others, not because they're unaware of suffering, but because they simply don't care. A lack of empathy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it wears a polite smile and a nod, while inside there's nothing. A bad man may listen to your pain without ever truly hearing it. He may offer words that sound like comfort, but there's no warmth, no depth, no real concern. He might change the subject so quickly, you wonder if you even spoke at all. Empathy isn't something that can be faked. It's either there or it isn't. And you'll notice the difference when you need it most. In moments of real vulnerability, the bad man is often absent. He's distracted, inconvenienced by your emotions, treating them as something to fix or ignore. If he does respond, it's often with shallow advice, or worse, by comparing your pain to his own and turning the conversation back to himself. He doesn't listen to understand. He listens for a pause so he can redirect the spotlight. I once saw this play out at a family gathering when a friend shared the pain of losing his wife. The man beside him didn't offer empathy or even respectful silence. Instead, he jumped in with a story about breaking 80 on the golf course. It wasn't just tone-deaf, it was cruel. Whether he realized it or not, he buried someone else's grief under the weight of his own trivial concerns. That's how a man without empathy moves through the world. He's unwilling or unable to witness anything that doesn't serve his needs. True empathy requires effort, patience, and a soft heart. Qualities he long ago traded for comfort and control. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle." He didn't say to be kind only when it's easy or beneficial. It was a moral duty, a cornerstone of virtue. To recognize another's struggle is to be human. To ignore it is to turn away from our shared humanity. What's more, men who lack empathy are often deeply insecure. Compassion demands vulnerability, and that requires strength, the quiet kind, that allows someone to sit in another's grief or celebrate someone's joy without jealousy. A man without empathy has armored himself so heavily against his own pain that he can no longer see yours. He avoids discomfort by numbing himself, but the cost of that detachment is paid by the people around him. To protect yourself, pay attention. Watch how someone responds when you open up. Do they pause, ask how you're feeling, or offer support? Or do they steer the moment back to themselves and diminish what matters to you? That moment reveals everything. Stoicism is not about coldness or emotional withdrawal. It's about clarity. We cannot change another person's ability to care, but we can choose who we walk beside. Sometimes the wisest choice is walking away from those who cannot meet you in life's hardest moments. A man who lacks empathy can only take, he cannot give. And real life depends on mutual care, on being seen, heard, and safe enough to show up fully, not just in the easy moments. A bad man misses this entirely, and if you stay too long, he'll make you miss it too. So be mindful. Choose carefully. As the Stoics knew, it's not the presence of kindness that defines a person, but its absence that reveals the truth. Sign 5. They fear. Change, one of the clearest signs of a bad man is his fear of change, not just in himself, but in the people around him. He doesn't want to grow, and he certainly doesn't want you to grow either. At first glance, it might not even seem like fear. It might sound like concern. He'll say things that appear caring on the surface, but underneath, they're subtle. Chains designed to keep you where he's comfortable. He might tell you there's no point in learning something new, that it's foolish to take risks at your age, or that you should be satisfied with what you have because it's good enough. But what he's really saying is, stay where I can manage you, stay small so I don't have to feel uncomfortable with my own lack of growth. A man who fears change sees it as a threat. When you start improving yourself, taking a class, starting a business, or even adopting healthier habits, he feels exposed. Your growth forces him to confront his own stagnation, and that's something he'd rather avoid. Instead of supporting you, he resists. He tries to convince you your ambitions are unnecessary, even silly. He'll subtly plant doubts or make you feel guilty for wanting more. Because if you grow, you might outgrow him, and that is his greatest fear. Psychologically, this kind of resistance often stems from deep insecurity. The bad man builds his world on predictability and control. He finds comfort in things staying the same, even when those things are broken. Real growth requires humility, effort, and the courage to admit there's more to learn. He resists because he knows he's not ready to make that commitment to himself, and instead of taking responsibility, he tries to hold others back. Stoic philosophy teaches us that change is not only natural, but necessary. Life itself is change. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change. Everything in nature evolves. To resist change is to resist life itself." But a bad man clings to the illusion of permanence, even as the world shifts around him. He will fight to keep things the same, even if it means limiting the people he claims to care about. The solution is realizing that you cannot drag someone toward growth. You can't force anyone to change, no matter how much you love them or how badly you want them to evolve. What you can do is continue your own journey. Lead by example. The Stoics remind us that we are responsible for our actions, not the reactions of others. Focus on what is within your control, your choices, your progress, your life. It's not selfish to outgrow someone who refuses to grow. It's necessary. Growth requires space, and sometimes that means leaving behind those determined to stay stuck. The right people will celebrate your change, even when it challenges them to look inward. The wrong ones will try to hold you down so they don't have to. Change is the nature of life. To resist it is to suffer. A bad man chooses comfort, even if it kills his potential. A wise person chooses growth, knowing it's the only path to becoming who they are meant to be. You have that choice. Make it for yourself, and don't let anyone talk you out of it. Sign 6. They love control. Here's an unsettling fact. Psychologists have found that controlling behavior in relationships often starts so subtly that most people don't recognize it until they're already tangled in it. What looks like care and attention at first often reveals itself later as domination and possession. This is how a bad man operates. He doesn't walk in waving red flags. He wraps his control in concern, calling it protection, responsibility, even love. But control disguised as love is still control. And if you stay long enough, you'll find yourself slowly surrendering parts of your life without even realizing it. Control isn't always loud or aggressive. It can be quiet, calculated, and delivered with a smile. It can sound like, "I just want what's best for you," or "I worry when you go out with them." But underneath those words lies a different message. "I don't trust you to make your own decisions." A bad man who loves control wants to be the one who decides where you go, who you see, how you spend your time, and often what dreams you're allowed to pursue. And the longer you allow it, the harder it becomes to recognize how much freedom you've handed over. There's a deep psychological insecurity in someone who tries to control others. They are afraid of unpredictability, of not having the upper hand. Their need for control often stems from their own fear of losing relevance or importance in your life. So rather than face that fear, they tighten their grip. They decide for you because it makes them feel safe. It gives them power, but the price is always your freedom. The Stoics had no tolerance for this kind of manipulation. Seneca wisely said, "No man is free who is not master of himself, and the man who seeks to master others has not yet mastered himself." True strength comes from self-discipline, not domination over another person. A good man walks beside you, not ahead of you, pulling the reins. When someone starts to limit your world even under the guise of care, take notice. Control rarely begins as an iron fist. It often starts with small things, choosing for you instead of with you, discouraging your independence in subtle ways, and making you second-guess your instincts. You may begin to feel like you owe him explanations for choices that once came freely. Over time, you start asking permission instead of living in partnership. The solution is clarity and courage. The Stoics remind us that freedom is not negotiable. You are not here to live under anyone else's terms but your own. The moment you feel the weight of someone else's control, it's time to step back and examine the relationship honestly. Is it built on trust or on fear? On love or on power? A man who loves you will respect your autonomy. He'll encourage your independence because he values your freedom as much as his own. The man who loves control, however, will slowly shrink your world until you no longer recognize yourself. That's not love, that's a leash. And life, true life, is meant to be lived free. Choose that always. Sign 7, they take pleasure in your pain. There's something deeply unsettling about a person who finds satisfaction in the struggles of others. A bad man may not always laugh out loud when you're hurting, but if you watch closely, you'll sense it, that flicker of satisfaction when life knocks you down. He may mask it behind a concerned nod or a forced sigh, but underneath it all, he feels just a little taller when you're feeling small. This is the kind of man who doesn't just tolerate your pain, he feeds off it. It makes him feel superior, powerful, in control. Nothing gives him more comfort than knowing you're not doing well. At first, he might appear supportive, quick to lend an ear when things are falling apart, but only when they're falling apart. The minute you start to pull yourself together, when your life starts moving in a brighter direction, he fades. Maybe he gets distant. Maybe he suddenly finds reasons to criticize you. Your happiness unsettles him because it threatens the balance. He's worked so hard to maintain a balance where you're beneath him. I once witnessed something that sticks with me to this day. It was at a neighborhood barbecue. Two men were chatting. One had just bought a used car he was proud of. As he described it, his neighbor smiled, nodded, and said all the right things. But as soon as the guy mentioned the old car breaking down in traffic the week before, the neighbor practically lit up. He leaned in, laughing about how embarrassing that must have been, even joking that people probably thought he was begging for help on the side of the road. You could see him enjoying the moment a little too much, as if that one humiliating experience gave him permission to feel superior for the rest of the afternoon. That's when it hit me. This wasn't friendly teasing. This was someone savoring another person's discomfort. This is the heart of it. A bad man who takes pleasure in your pain doesn't just lack empathy. He lacks the basic decency that makes real relationships possible. Psychologically, he relies on your setbacks to elevate himself. When you fail, he succeeds. When you suffer, he sleeps better. He may never say it out loud, but his actions will tell you everything you need to know. The Stoics were clear on this kind of person. Marcus Aurelius taught that our greatness isn't measured by the weakness of others, but by our own self-mastery. A good person doesn't need you to lose in order to feel like they've won. They lift with you, stand beside you when things get hard, and celebrate when you rise. A bad man, he only claps when you're on your knees. So what do? You walk away. You protect your peace fiercely. As Epictetus said, the flourishing life is a life in accordance with nature, and there's nothing natural about staying in the company of someone who smiles at your suffering. Surround yourself with those who celebrate your victories, not those who quietly hope for your downfall. So why do these signs matter? Because your peace, your inner peace, is priceless. Stoicism isn't just about gritting your teeth and surviving life's storms. It's about building a life so steady, so intentional that those storms can't shake you anymore. You can't stop bad men from existing. There's no law or wisdom that can clear them all from the path. But you can stop them from living rent-free, in your head, from holding space in your heart where peace should be. You can choose to step back, see clearly, and protect yourself, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. As the Stoics say, you may not control the world, but you do control your mind. And when you master that, you've already won.